when we talk about sacred sexuality, you're intentional. You're present. So when we suppress those pieces of us and we feel shame, we don't know it. That shame is coming out in another way. That pain is coming out in another way, in an unconscious way. And we create a reality around that. We can demonize these topics, and we're the creators of that reality. So what we see that is demonized outside of us is just a reflection of that within.
Welcome to the Awaken magazine podcast, where influential conscious leaders come to share the real stories behind their spiritual journey and how they're helping others awaken to love. I'm your host, David Trotter, and today I'm excited to share with you a conversation with Jenna Lee. She's an Akashic Enlightenment channeler and host of the Erotic Spirit Podcast. Now, in this conversation, Jenna shares with us her process of healing from repressed childhood memories and trauma, and how she ultimately experienced a deep and powerful spiritual awakening. She shares with us how she accesses the Akashic Enlightenment and how that differs from the traditional Akashic records. She shares with us how you can access the Book of Truth and how that will transform your life as well. Then she shares with us her vision for integrating spirituality and sexuality as two inseparable parts of our existence here on Earth. Now, if you enjoy these types of conversations, spiritual conversations that go beyond the surface, I want to encourage you to click subscribe, because we release inspiring interviews with conscious leaders, healers, and coaches every week. I don't want you to miss one. Whether you're listening on Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or you're watching on YouTube, click subscribe, maybe even leave a rating or a review. Yeah, click the like button. Yeah, any of those things would be an easy way for you to help us spread the word about these incredible conversations that we release every week. All right, hey, let's jump in to my conversation with Jenna Lee. Jenna, it is great to be with you today. Thanks for taking time to connect.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
I want to hear all about your story of awakening to consciousness, mindfulness, spirituality. And I love to start in your childhood, if that's okay. Did you have some sort of faith or religion or spirituality experience as a kid?
Yeah. So, interestingly enough, I actually don't remember most of my childhood. So I have repressed memories,
Mm.
but we'll dive into that because that is connected into my awakening as an adult. And there was some religion aspect, but it uh, wasn't really like we were going to church. But really, what started my spiritual journey and my awakening was this catalyst where I had a loved one that had mental health crisis, and there were a lot of things that happened over a couple months, and it really catalyzed this PTSD for me, where it activated all these things. And in that journey is where then I started to dive back into the repressed memories and all the things that kind of shut out. And it was this journey where I was out of work for 5 months, and I would, walk into rooms, not know why I'm there. And it was just such an opportune time to start to dive in. I didn't know, I kind of was dragging my feet, but from the very beginning, it went straight back to childhood and all the stuff that kind of was repressed, that kind of was coming up, that I would just remember in flashbacks. And this was a gift. This was such a gift because I started to understand presence. I started to recognize that all of the repressed memories, actually, I had such a dysregulated system that me started to actually work on it initially with things like EMDR therapy, with sound healing, energy healing, and then a lot of the things that I do today to help clear and settle the system and now recognize presence and being present in my body, mind, and spirit. So it was such a journey, but helped me to see the beauty of now and honor that and honor all the parts of us.
Wow. Okay, I wanna make sure I get this correct. So, you don't have this recollection of childhood, and then as an adult, a family member has a mental health crisis,
Mhm.
which then causes you to experience a high amount of stress, is what I'm hearing you say, that results in PTSD. And then in the process, these memories that were repressed in childhood came back. I'm assuming that those memories included things that were traumatic. Is that the case?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so everything's right on track there. And yeah, so I was sexually abused when I was younger, and there were a couple things that happened, and so though that came up, that all like everything kind of came up, all the stuff of just holding all of that in for so
Mhm.
long came up in an unrelated task, but in a way, it's all related when you start to kind of dive in and get into the depths of who we are.
Can you help us understand, to whatever degree that you feel comfortable,
Yeah.
why we repress, like, how does that happen to repress memories where you can't, remember, childhood and so forth? Help us understand that. What's happening in the brain?
Yeah, so I probably can't speak to like the science behind it, but from like an energetic side, because I actually do a lot of energetic work in people's Akashic enlightenment, and a lot of people come in that actually have repressed memories. So what I have learned from that space that I can speak to is that there are things that the body does to survive that is just shutting down, is just kinda living the experience, and some people may never remember their repressed memories. I have, I felt in a space in my life that and I went through my Akashic enlightenment, so I've seen all of it, but there's just some sort of mechanism in there that is like survival, and
Mhm.
that is then, though our body still feels it, even though we don't remember it, my body would remember the survival and unconsciously create from that space. So, yeah. Yeah, that's just kinda my understanding. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So as you were going through this process, you were out of work for, I think you said 5 months, and you were experiencing different healing modalities, and you were finding, I assume, some relief from those. Take us through what happened during those months. Like, did you get back to a place of kind of functionality? And then I'm curious at what point you started to feel called to utilize your own intuitive gifts to help others.
Yeah, absolutely. So a little bit of the process was going through some modalities like EMDR therapy, which
Mhm.
for me it was the kind of the buzzies that would be on the right and left side of the leg, and through a guided practitioner that can create safety. It's not like you're re-experiencing, it's kind of this witnessing and observing, and the body gets to process it in ways that we shut out. So that was really important in a space that kind of got me to a more stable space where then I was not in a fight or flight and responding in ways that would kind of, you know, act in that survival pact. And I would do energy healing. So I had my first I never experienced energy healing. Like, what is this? And it was Reiki. And it was just this way to kind of ground my energy or even learn tools from that practitioner to be able to say, oh, okay, this is what it's like to ground the body when you're experiencing excess energy, like I was. This is what we do to ground the body and anchored in and just start to release that. So I was, like I said, I was out of work for 5 months. And when I went back to work, and I was intensively every week, and there was 1 month every day I was doing work on getting back to normal. When I did go back to work, I started to go to psychic and mediumship development classes. I was like curious in this space because of the energy healing that I received and what started to happen. And then it kind of moved into a space where I'm like, there's something here with this energy healing. And I felt it wasn't maybe Reiki, but something was coming and my hands were heating up on fire. I had an ayahuasca journey where I started channeling in light language. And I'm like, what is this? And I found that's where I found the modality Akashic Enlightenment and processed it, had a session, and instant forgiveness. That was the beauty of the
Oh,
guidance there.
amazing. Tell
Yeah.
us what Akashic enlightenment readings and healings are, because I think most of our listeners probably know what Akashic records readings are. Like, what is the difference here?
Yes, I love it. And just in case, right? So your Akashic records is your energetic database of what you've experienced in this lifetime. So it's the thoughts, the emotions, all the things. It includes all lifetimes, the soul's journey. And so what's different here is that Akashic Enlightenment is a prayer and a frequency that starts to step into what's called the Book of Truth. So the Book of Truth is a higher dimensional space. It's an 11th dimensional space that tunes into the cosmic laws or the laws of the universe. And what this does is help someone in their ascension path. When someone is working on ascension, and what, ascension is it's just kind of like, where's my connection to all that is, the source, the universe, outside of egoic beliefs and identities. And I don't get caught up in, this thing is happening here and that's not for my highest good. So where are we in that work? And this big database of the Book of Truth channels in with someone's journey, this higher knowledge that helps them to this different ascension path. So we can be doing our soul path, right? In different levels. And when we start to shift in this ascension path, um, things kind of move differently and shape differently. And it's about dropping into our ascended master self, right? Dropping that in, really truly embodying that and allowing ourselves to really express that too. So there's a bit of difference there in the frequencies and what comes in, and anyone can work with the Book of Truth, and because it's just universal knowledge and all we can do is just ask outside of the prayer. You just ask the universe and the universe will provide the answers. So
How were you introduced to Akashic enlightenment readings and the Book of Truth? And what was it about that really felt compelling? So often we're introduced to different modalities, Reiki, sound healing, EMDR, all these different things. But what was it about that particular, I don't know if I should say the word modality, but way of accessing truth and wisdom and healing that really pulled you in?
yeah, so what pulled me in is actually I never experienced an Akashic Records reading at all, and I just was really guided and trusted to the teacher where I was channeling in light language and ayahuasca, and I'm like, what is happening? This is am I crazy? Right? Like a lot of things that happen, and I had someone that pointed me to someone that was doing this Akashic enlightenment. And so I didn't really know the difference at that time, and even when I started doing it, I was like, "I still don't know if I know." But there is a difference in the frequency and what people feel. I can say that with people that have done sessions, they'll kind of say, "Oh, like this, I can tell there's different stuff or different frequencies here." And it just feels like home. I also what really pulls me in, and it really pulled me in to start doing it for myself after that session, I was like, "I need to do this for me," was I could tell there was something here, and as my soul is being led in the journey, the shifts in my reality were so profound in a short time that I'm like, "There's something here. So I just followed that."
Mhm. And so then what was the process for you to say, okay, I want to utilize this to help other people? Like, how did that like, how did you navigate that shift? So many people that listen to our podcast are going, okay, I've got a day job, but I've got these modalities that I want to help people with. I think I want to focus more time on that. How did you make that shift?
Yeah, so I'm laughing because the universe did it for me. Yeah, they ended my corporate job. The universe was like, "All right, we're gonna just cancel this." What I was doing though initially to get into that shift was I felt so guided to help others transform. And I started doing the sessions. I started showing up and going to shows and learning and doing more of that. And at one point, I literally said to the universe, I'm like, all right, I worked 10 days in a row this week because I had my day job, and then I worked the weekend, and then I had a 1 day break, and then I did it all over again. I was like, I can't do this anymore. So if this is what I'm supposed to do, let's make it happen. And I really believed and trusted. And a few days later, I my job was eliminated. And so but it was the transition was actually me manifesting and creating this reality where I was doing the work, even if that may look differently for everyone, but I was doing it. I felt really supported and guided, and yeah.
Mhm. Okay, so we have touched base on that there's a different frequency with an Akashic Enlightenment reading, but take us through when you work with a client, they sign up for an Akashic Enlightenment reading. What do they experience from beginning to end? Take us through the process.
Yeah, so good question. So really what the experience from beginning to end is, first we kind of step into like a just a quick grounding meditation, just anchoring them in. And then what we step into is, the prayer comes out, is said out loud once, twice quietly to kind of set this intention for it. Now I'm clairvoyant. I'm all the clairs. So I see, hear, feel, know. Everything drops in, and as soon as I step into this field, there could be things that are coming in. But what works best is a question, especially because we're working with someone's soul journey, so their book of life, what everything they've experienced, and this book of truth, which is this huge database. So imagine you have so many different possibilities. What is happening in someone's life that they're feeling stuck with and stagnant? And that's how we kind of start off with this: what is going on? And what are some goals and questions if you're feeling stagnant somewhere that you're looking to get to? Sometimes it's a physical thing that they're experiencing. And as we know, energetic components, emotional components come down into the physical field, creating dis-ease. And this allows us to even ask why we're experiencing it. So we get to the root there, what is causing misalignments, and allow that to shift. So that happens in the sessions. Comes up is the root to the belief system. There's somewhere we know we learn these things and we're conditioned, and now we've created our reality on these pieces. So that comes up, and it's kind of like this clearing in itself.
Are they in a meditative state during this process, or are you more the one who's kind of dropped in a trance state?
It can be both. Yeah, like it can be both. I mean, I drop in. So I'll drop into this altered state, but they can experience peace, they can experience calm. They sometimes may not know what I said, and it may not make sense because the ego is kind of it's shifting and consciousness is shifting. So it's about settling in and allowing, because it's shifting on a higher level. The ego doesn't need to know. It thinks it wants to know.
Are you speaking in light language as well as English, or just English?
Both. Yeah. So both, it'll come in where it is in English, and then a lot of times there'll be prompts to clear. So I'll clear in different levels and different densities and different consciousnesses, and I work with interdimensional beings that we'll get to. I work with the Elohim that also help guide people or help a remembrance of their original blueprint. We come into this incarnation, there's an original divine human blueprint, and it helps them to remember that frequency, and it helps them shift, as well as then the light language comes in that kind of blasts with this light and this love to help shifting as well. So it's everything is channeled, and it's just being that vessel to receive and transmit and help guide people back to their true self.
These are about an hour sessions, I assume?
Yeah, yeah, the best I recommend is an hour session, because usually sometimes they'll be like, people will do one session and that's it, and they may not come back because things have really shifted, or if they're going through like a spiritual awakening, some sort of big thing in their life, a divorce, and their entire reality is completely shifting. Sometimes there's more, more, but yeah, typically an hour session.
So, usually, I would assume people coming to you do have probably more than a question. They've got a concern. There's something that's challenging them. Um, but I find that in a lot of the kind of world of spirituality, there can be an excitement or a fascination with different aspects of spirituality, right? You talked about, I was in this ayahuasca and then I started channeling light language. And I was like, okay, I'm going to raise my hand and say that's happened to me with mushrooms. Like I get on mushrooms, powerful light language starts flowing through me. Like I can't stop it. And it's like, please stop, you know? My partner Mandy's always like, "Can you, like, turn down the volume on that?" I'm like, "I can't, it's just coming through," you know?
Yes.
So, there's these exciting aspects. We're learning different modalities and all this kinda stuff,
Mhm.
but in the process, it can be perhaps tempting to avoid the not so fun aspects of healing unless there's a presenting problem or issue, right? You lose your job, you have a breakup, you have a challenge. Okay, you're going to have to deal with that. Um, what are your thoughts on the aspect of like, hey, it's fun to explore spirituality, but maybe it's easy to avoid the not so fun stuff?
Yes. I love this question because typically what happens is a lot of times we go from like something has awakened the spirituality, whatever that means to someone. Something has awakened it. But what we have just come from is includes a lot of avoidance and bypassing and a lot of distractions to actually avoid the real problem. And then we get excited about this new venture, but we're still doing the avoiding in different ways. So I want to go learn about all these other things, but actually not sit with what it's meaning and actually apply it. And this can be real big in like spiritual bypassing. It's like I'm just going to avoid it in a different way, but it's shiny with this spirituality side to it. And what's really important is when we start to embrace all of the aspects of us, including the shadows, that's the depth. We get deeper within ourselves. That is actually a deep spirituality. That is a deep knowing of ourselves. And when we start to acknowledge the pain, we actually release it. When we avoid the pain, it just gets shoved down and we unconsciously react in some way towards another person or a situation, or we create some other chaos over here. And the fun part, though, like to empower people, is that you can then, when you work on and sit on this stuff that we're avoiding, we're actually present and can bring in peace and cultivate safety from within. And that's the beauty of spirituality. So you get in deep to get to like the meat of who we are. Yeah.
Yeah. So, one of the terms that is important to you is conscious embodiment. Conscious embodiment. What does that mean to you, and why is that so important?
Yes. And I love using the word embodiment a lot, a- and applying it into or explaining it in different ways. And there's this aspect where I hear embodiment thrown out a lot. And to me, it's about the application of what I know. One of the big steps in a healing journey and in a spiritual journey is I'm learning, I'm over here, and how do I actually apply what I've learned to actually say that I not only I know, but I am. And this could come up in a couple ways. So if I was working on like a like core wounds of being seen and stepping into my business, it's like, okay, maybe I've been distracting myself and avoiding because I don't want to be seen. The actual application of knowing that I've worked on these core wounds and I feel good is stepping into something that, yeah, you're going to probably feel uncomfortable. You may be reminded of some of the stories of maybe when times you weren't seen. That's why we avoid it. So actually taking steps in the direction to apply the information is going to allow the ego to understand that we're good. I just made up this freeze because that's what I used to do. And I'm actually stepping in a conscious way, and I acknowledge, oh, okay, this is fear. That's okay. But I still step forward and I apply the knowledge and I do. And I embody and I be. Yeah.
I love that differentiation that you shared is the difference between I know and I am.
Mhm.
I can know something versus I'm embodying it. It's within me. Very powerful. You share about your vision, articulating it in this way, and I'm going to read it. It says, "My vision is a world where embodiment, there's a word again. Vision is a world where embodiment, spirituality, and sexuality are honored as inseparable parts of being human, and where individuals are empowered to live fully, freely, and aligned with their truth." Help me understand that vision a little bit more, because obviously that informs your work and your work with clients.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what has really shifted in my world has been all of the pieces of me that were shut down, whether they were repressed through trauma or conditioning, have actually created this illusion of separation. And I had this one layer that came out where I was in my Akashic enlightenment and I asked, how do I connect in? What are the blocks in connecting in deeper with myself, with source, with all that is? And I remember my repressed memories. I remember the sexual abuse. I had all this wash over with shame. And feeling that shame was really pivotal in my shift forward because the shame was being expressed in an unconscious way in other ways. This frequency of shame was coming out in ways that was like, I'm not authentically expressing myself in my business because I'm shamed. And it had nothing to do with sexuality or anything. It's this frequency within. So when we start to see all pieces of us, we we step out of those lower frequencies. We step out of those lower vibrations. We acknowledge. And the big thing is that when we each do that independently and we'll all do that work where we're really truly in that space, we start to create a reality that's reflective of that. So instead of people suppressing shame or anything around maybe their sexuality or who they are, they're they're embracing it and it's coming from love as opposed to coming out in like warped ways in society as we see, and we can go down that rabbit hole. But basically we're allowing people to not suppress their pain and allow pieces to just be truly embodied and loved. Yeah.
Mhm. Part of I assume that vision and that desire to see the integration of spirituality, sexuality, embodiment is you have a podcast called the Erotic Spirit Podcast. I did not know my spirit could be erotic, but I guess all aspects could be okay. So I'm con- I'm a little embarrassed now.
Felt
Talk to
good.
me. Talk to me about the Erotic Spirit Podcast. What is the vision behind that, and how is that flowing from this vision you just shared?
Yeah. So, and this is airing, or this will be aired kind of in similar timelines from when the podcast is outlined. So, the vision of the first season that's coming out is really all of these tools that connect to things that are everyday that you would not even think is connected to sexuality. But it is our unconscious behavior is connected into all that is. So, for example, boundaries. If we have boundaries that we're not enforcing in some ways, we're doing it in all capacities of life. So the vision really is allowing people to see this container and I co-host with someone, a beautiful soul, where we're building this container to allow tools to understanding ourselves in different ways. And we both channel in different things that come in. And we speak on so many topics that you're like, oh, how is that connected to sexuality? It's just all connected when we are in a space of embracing all of us. And the fact that we have statistics out there related to sexual trauma and abuse that are really high, and not a lot of people are really having the conversation and having that out loud and still consider things taboo. That is what is actually not allowing the healing to take place. So the podcast, the part of the vision is allowing the healing to take place. There's actually really powerful transmissions that's recorded in, like embedded through the frequencies that come in when we speak. We're speaking in English, that allow people to shift their consciousness and allow forgiveness to come forward with any capacity. So,
You
yeah.
touch base on it for a moment here, but one, why do you think that in 2025 sexuality is still taboo in, I mean, we're in North America, so we could just say that. And what is the result? What's the downside of it remaining taboo?
Yeah. Oh, okay. We're gonna get in. so, so why now? I don't consider it taboo. It's like a normalized topic for me and people that are aligned, or people that are around me, and it comes out. But why I see it as that taboo is because are people really having conversations with their friends, like, about things? Are they having conversations with, um, yeah, people that they're just meeting? Is it coming out naturally, right? It's like one of those things, money and sex. It's like we don't talk about it, but this is a time, and I even see too people in the spiritual community. It's coming out more, and I'm so excited about it. I think we're on an innovative ramp up. But I even don't see a lot of people channeling about sex and sexuality. I see we're covering war, we're covering the dismantle of this organization. But what about the pain of the people that received from those spaces, right? I don't really see that come up as much. And I'm hopeful that I think that we're in a space where that is rising. And where I feel that it really impacts is the more that we suppress these types of just natural pieces of us, more that we shove that down, the more it comes out in warped ways. Yeah, I mean, it can come out, this can go in many different ways, but it can come out in, um, unconscious ways of being. Like when we talk about sacred sexuality, you're intentional, you're present. Okay. When we're looking at spirituality, it's not separate. We're all looking at an intentional way to be present, and that's in every aspect of our lives. So when we suppress those pieces of us and we feel shame, um, it's we don't know it. That shame is coming out in another way. That pain is coming out in another way, in an unconscious way. And we create a reality around that. We can demonize these topics. And, we're the creators of that reality. So what we see that is demonized outside of us is just a reflection of that within. So it's beautiful to start to have these conversations and allow that to shift in perspective. Yeah.
Mm. All right. The Erotic Spirit Podcast. We will link to that, of course, in the show notes. I'm curious about these attunements that you offer that are called Aquilorian Light Being Attunements. So, until I started researching your work, I was not familiar with Aquilorians. So, I would love for you to educate me on these entities and what does this healing as well as the attunements entail? What happens as you're doing this with the client?
Absolutely. So I will start off with, yeah, the Aquilorians. And so they are a ninth density interdimensional beings. And What that means is they are of a higher consciousness and they work on levels that, so we have chakras and energy centers in the body, and they work on levels that are also working with our transpersonal chakras, so the chakras that are outside of the physical body. And what that does is it works with one's entire field. So intuitively, they'll channel in and work with a client one-on-one or a transmission or a session or however that comes in. And that helps for shifts that are quicker because we're working on everything. We're working on what's in, we're working on everything that's outside, and help people to shift back into and remember their divine original blueprint, which is this ascended master essence, this being that is all that is and is a reflection of all that is out there, and helping people to shift into that. So that's what happens when working with them. Now, the attunements are a series of 9 attunements over that, one a week typically. And so people, what they can expect with them is connecting with the aquilarians, but the attunements mainly are about connecting to true self and helping people shift um, into those higher frequencies and to connect to their true self. So when I was receiving the attunements myself, I had a lot of things happening in my life, and things just kind of were like, oh, okay, this is just happening. It felt like things were more at peace in a home in turbulent times, and I felt really connected to knowing that I was this is what was guided, that this is right, that this is leaving for a reason or shifting for a reason. So these are different attunements that I offer, just kind of some of the attunements that I offer that are, yeah, can be beneficial to someone in their ascension journey.
I love that. Jenna, if you were to meet someone, airport, train, whatever it might be, and they said, "Why do you do this?
Mm,
Why do you do this work when you could be doing X or doing Y? Like, what is
mm,
it about this that is so compelling for you?"
yeah. Oh, I love this question. So in my journey, I recognize how I wasn't present. I recognize how I would live in the future. I would live in the past, unknowingly through my body, but also through my mind. And living in that was just chaos. I would create a reality around all of these things that were not even my beliefs. They were beliefs that I learned, that I started to believe were mine.
Give me an example of what one of those beliefs might be.
Yeah, so, like, one of the core wounds I had around was self-value, and I believed that my job before, stepping into this, my corporate job was my value. I would work 60, 70 plus hours a week, and I made a lot of money, and that success meant my value. But that is not anywhere near true. It is, and by the way, that job ended. So, um, so living in that world, right, can be detrimental because then you're like, things happen. And that's not true. My value, what I see within here, all that comes from within. So that's presence. When you start to step out of those identities and attachments outside and start to create that world from within. And my entire life changed. And living by that presence to help guide someone into their presence, to step in and do the work with someone, be fully present, not judge them, just see their true being, see their true essence, and to see someone literally just shift like that and start to create a world around that. This is exactly why I do it. It's like, okay, we're doing the thing, we're living it, we're being, we're showing up as who we truly are. And that's powerful.
So wonderful. Do you have a particular type of client that you work with most often, like a certain niche where you just go, man, I'm really powerful with this group of people?
Yeah, that's I would say a lot of times things have mirrored and come into things that I have already worked on, and that now they're kind of coming in because there's there's opportunity to help those people shift, and that I've seen myself outside of the story and the pain, and that's where they'll come in. So it's not necessarily like a niche, but I'll see a lot of people that have experienced sexual trauma, that they come in and they're not even coming in for that. They're like, "What's the blocks to my money?" And believe it or not, the trauma will come up, anything related to sex, like, that will come up. So a lot of that comes in for me, that I would say, I guess, more often than not, and it's just because of where I've kind of gone and done the work myself. So, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Amazing. And so we've talked a little bit about the Akashic Enlightenment reading. We've talked about the Aquilorian light being attunements. If someone was feeling connected to you, they're wanting to take that next step to work with you, is there something that you feel like is a good entry point to your work?
Yeah, I would say a good entryway is for a personal one-on-one session, the Akashic Enlightenment sessions. That is a good way to get used to the frequency, to get used to like what it is that I do. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different things, and I would say start there. Sometimes people don't even know why they're like, I don't know why I'm here, and they just felt the pull, and so that's a lot of times if you don't know where to start, yeah, start there.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
a huge part of your work obviously is online. Do you do things locally there in Arizona or other parts of the world where people can connect with you one on one?
I do, yeah, actually, I love to travel, and so I'm in different spaces. I mean, I've gone to shows in Hawaii, Ohio, like, all around, the States, and I definitely feel a pull globally. So when I go to there might be local shows, but I am going to be putting on my own, conferences and shows and immersion events that are connected into more of this embodiment theme that has kinda come up, and get feeling the acknowledging the disconnect from mind and body, and tools that are immersive in person to connect into that mind and body. That's really important to me. So definitely that'll be something that's coming up more, but absolutely lots of in-person stuff wherever I go. And as I'm meeting people, they're asking for these things. So I'm just following the guidance.
I love that. All right. So, what's the best place for people to connect with you, get on your email list so they can learn about these things and obviously follow you on social media?
Yeah, the best place is my website. So myawakeningwithin.com. That's the best place to go. Sign up on the newsletter so you get all the info. If there's certain questions, feel free to contact me there. And for social media, it's at My Awakening Within. So I'm on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Threads. You find me somewhere, and you'll see just kind of more little details into my world. Yeah.
Wonderful. Jenna, thank you so much for sharing your story and your wisdom and how you're helping the world. Really appreciate all that you're doing. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Absolutely.
Thanks for listening to the Awaken Magazine podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and our other conversations, would you mind taking a moment to leave a 5-star review and maybe even a comment on Spotify or Apple Podcasts? That's one of the ways that you can give back to the show and help us reach more people. And of course, feel free to share the episode with a friend. And if you're not already on our email list, we send out an inspiring email every Monday morning full of articles and interviews. Just head on over to awakenedmagazine.com and click subscribe and join for free. Our hope is that all the resources we share will help our world continue awakening to love.